probably already heard the news. We finally know what it is that broke the Arbiter. Big spoiler alert, it was Argus' World Soul that we had previously defeated in Legion. At this point, this is already old news, but what do we know in regards to actually fighting Argus in the Shadowlands? And most importantly, didn't Blizzard say that the Titans have their own afterlife? So how exactly did Argus reach the Shadowlands? What is the logic behind it? And how did the Jailer orchestrate all this stuff? If you ever wanted to record your raids, arenas, Mythic Plus, check out Squad OV. The app records itself without a click of a button. You can see complete encounter stats, spell visualizations, analyze performance, and you can also watch your friend's perspective. Best of all, you can do it from anywhere just from the web app. Use the link in the description to check out the sponsor Squad OV completely free. What broke the Arbiter was the main mystery since even before the Shadowlands was released. However, the fact that it was Argus was one of the main theories, and the second theory was that it was Denatrius, which was pretty close. Argus was the main boss of Legion, and it is what got Sargeras imprisoned, but Argus is also a relatively new concept. We've always known that the Burning Legion was able to regenerate. However, when we visited Argus, we learned that not only is this the main stronghold of this demonic army, but that there is literally a world soul inside this long ago shattered planet, an unborn titan that was turned into a death engine that allowed the demons to regenerate over and over and over again. This story was a tad bit ridiculous, but overall it was actually excellent. For example, we've known about Argus since forever. We've known that it was the home to the Eredar, so it was not new. The World Soul Titan stuff was relatively newly introduced at that point in the Chronicle, and when they combined the two, it ended up being a pretty good storyline. Seeing that Sargeras was a World Soul himself, he knew all about the inner workings of World Souls, and he definitely knew how to twist it to work as an engine for his endless demonic army. However, all of that changed suddenly. I'll get into how all this information completely reshapes and kind of retcons the older lore, but let us look into what is this actual new information. So during the Zereth Mortis campaign, which is 9.2, we do a bunch of things with the ultimate goal of stopping the Jailer and returning Shadowlands into order. One of these things is creating a new Arbiter that requires a vessel and a voice. We gather these and then we start the ritual of combining the two in order to return Shadowlands to order, but a Natrazim steps in and completely disrupts this ritual. He then proceeds to infuse the vessel with Argus the Unmaker, and then we get a reveal of how Argus was a pawn this entire time. A Darkseer Corruptor says, "Long have we awaited this moment. The Banished One's gambit made manifest, a world soul twisted by death, a maul with which to crush the Arbiter, and now it shall take this vessel. Argus will be eternal." Now, in this battle, we literally face off against an avatar of Argus, the tortured and used soul called the Echo of Argus, and ultimately, we defeat him. Then Pelagos steps in and offers to become the Arbiter, but that is a completely different story. I have an entire video on that. Let us examine how is this actually possible, what is this Banished One's gambit, and what role did this World Soul play in this entire ordeal. An important thing to keep in mind is that Blizzard told us that other beings have their own afterlives, explicitly that the Titans have their own. Now that we've learned that Zereth Mortis is just a mortal death behind the scenes and that there is probably a Zereth for every other cosmological force, this makes even more sense. Then you may be wondering, how is it actually possible that Argus managed to reach the mortal afterlife? Well, at the moment, the most dominant theory is that it was the Jailer behind this and that it was done through the Dreadlords. Specifically, they imbued Argus with death energy that allowed him to shift afterlives, and if we go by this logic, it makes a lot of sense. The Arbiter was supposed to examine a soul of a world. No wonder it completely broke. There was such a strong infusion into the mortal Shadowlands that the Arbiter was just not equipped enough to go through such a large endeavor. However, how this was accomplished really is a bit ridiculous when you examine the entire thing. We got another quote when the Jailer actually reaches the globe of Azeroth and he says, "Can your mortal minds fathom how long I have waited? Every event set in motion, every pawn put into play." So this is in fact the Banished One's gambit that was previously mentioned by the Darkseer Corruptor. However, this is even more confusing as we need to actually define the term gambit. Gambit isn't a gamble, it isn't a game, it's like a strategy, like an opening move where you make an early sacrifice in order to gain an advantage later on. This means that we still don't know what this sacrifice was, but that the genius jailer planned this literally since forever. However, when we actually examine the lore that we know, it just makes no sense that this guy is actually so smart. Just all the probabilities and things that could go wrong and go in either direction, it really is a bit ridiculous that this dude orchestrated a 30,000-year-old plan and that it just worked flawlessly. Here's the thing, we know that it was the Dreadlords that corrupted Sargeras, that is the new lore. They themselves said that Order was the easiest to corrupt and all they had to do was show chaos to them. However, we still don't know how the Dreadlords work for the Jailer exactly, as we know for a fact that they were created by the Denatrius, and that a long time ago, the Denatrius more than likely was the one that imprisoned the Jailer, so I would be surprised if they worked for the Jailer so long ago. However, this makes sense. Sure, the Dreadlords corrupted a pure being of Order and got him to go evil. However, how could they possibly know that he was going to search for Argus and that we, mortals, 25,000 years later would reach this planet, attack it, and do all this stuff? Especially since the Burning Legion was not a failure. They were in fact incredibly successful for well over 25,000 years. They destroyed planet after planet. We really were fighting a hopeless fight a few years ago. So, you would imagine the Jailer knew that we, the Azeroth's mortals, were a really tough nut to crack as he relied on us and that we would be the ones to send Argus to the Shadowlands. However, if he really is so genius, how did he not predict that we would also attack him and defeat him? And big spoiler alert, we do in fact in the end defeat him. Are they really going to go the route of I underestimated you mortals, I definitely didn't saw this coming? I mean, the dude made a 30,000-year-old plan that relied on us mortals to break Argus, and then he thought, yeah, he's totally going to just get rid of us so easily. I don't know, it just doesn't make all that much sense. The only way I can see some logic in this is if he was just super lucky and things just aligned for him. Plus, the Dreadlords must have purposefully navigated Sargeras' mission to go to Argus. They imbued it with death right under his nose, but still, I don't know, it just doesn't make too much sense to me. Really, the all-knowing Dark Titan, the most powerful Titan ever, and the super intelligent Eredar were just not able to see through this plan. Just seems a bit ridiculous. Were they really just so dumb? For well over 20,000 years, there wasn't a single situation where they might have been like, damn, these Dreadlord guys may not actually be our allies after all. They may just be double agents. I know fantasy universes twist years, so you kind of lose a sense of time, but imagine what 20,000 years actually is. 20,000 years ago, we didn't even have civilization as we know it, so really, it's a really long time to get to know the Dreadlords, and I'm surprised no one ever saw through their cover or saw what they have been doing this entire time. So ultimately, the Jailer's millennia-old plan succeeded and he did all this stuff in one blow. He imbued Argus with death to go to the Shadowlands. He got Sargeras imprisoned and nearly eliminated one entire cosmological power. This empowered him directly and gave him material for a new Arbiter, and all of that was done through manipulation, and he used us as tools. Of course, we still have to wait for 9.2 to get released for this story to be further explained and to make more sense. I am willing to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they can really provide us with more depth that would make sense of this Burning Legion Shadowlands connection, but honestly, I can't say I'm exactly a big fan of this entire genius master plan scheme that has been going on. Thank you for watching. Check out what happened to the Helm Domination by clicking on the screen, and also check out Donald's Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.